5 years had passed since Emily signed the divorce papers without a single explanation. No fight, no tears, just silence. And now, on a quiet autumn afternoon, Daniel Blackwood stood in front of her house, his house once, long ago. The gate creaked as he pushed it open. The sound cut through the stillness, sending a ripple of unease through his chest. He had walked into boardrooms filled with powerful men without fear, yet this small wooden door made his hands tremble. The billionaire headlines, the luxury cars, the private flights, none of them mattered here. He noticed the changes first. The paint was fading. The garden was smaller, simpler. No roses anymore. Emily had loved roses. He remembered promising her a bigger home one day, a better life, once I make it. That day had come too late. The door opened slowly. Emily stood there, frozen. Time had touched her face gently but firmly. Her eyes were the same, though, sharp, cautious, guarded by years of disappointment. She didn't smile. She didn't step aside. Daniel. Her voice was steady, but disbelief flickered beneath it. I just needed to see you, he said. The words sounded weak even to him. A long pause followed. Cars passed in the distance. Somewhere a dog barked. Finally, she stepped back, allowing him inside, not as a welcome, but as a courtesy. The house smelled of tea and old books. Familiar, yet distant. Daniel's gaze fell on the empty wall where their wedding photo once hung. He felt the absence like a bruise. You're famous now, Emily said quietly, closing the door behind him. There was no accusation in her tone, only distance. Yes, he replied, but that's not why I'm here. She crossed her arms, a shield built from years of learning how to stand alone. Then why? Daniel opened his mouth, then closed it. 5 years of success couldn't buy the right answer. All he could offer was the truth he had avoided for too long. I came back, he said softly, because leaving you was the only thing I ever failed at. Emily said nothing, but for the first time, her silence wasn't empty. It was listening. They sat across from each other at the small wooden table, a quiet battlefield between them. Emily poured tea into 2 chipped cups, her movements calm, almost practiced. She offered him one without meeting his eyes. The clink of porcelain echoed louder than it should have. Daniel wrapped his hands around the cup, feeling the warmth, searching for courage. I tried to find you, he began. After you left, you changed your number, moved. I didn't know where to look. Emily stirred her tea slowly. She did not answer. The spoon circled again and again, as if time itself were stuck. I thought success would fix everything, Daniel continued. That once I made it, once I proved myself, the emptiness would disappear. He let out a dry breath. It didn't. Silence pressed down on the room. It wasn't hostile. It was controlled. Chosen. Emily had learned how to survive inside it. Daniel leaned forward. Say something. Yell at me. Blame me. Anything. She finally looked up. Her eyes were tired, not angry. I said everything 5 years ago, she replied softly. You just weren't listening. The words landed heavier than a shout. Daniel felt them settle deep in his chest. He glanced around the room. No luxury. No signs of longing for the life he now lived. Just peace, built slowly from the ruins he had left behind. I worked 18 hours a day, he said, almost defensively. I thought I was doing it for us. Emily's lips curved into a faint, sad smile. You were doing it instead of us. That was when he understood. Her silence wasn't punishment, it was closure. She had already grieved the marriage while he was still dreaming of the future. Daniel lowered his gaze. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, she said, because forgiveness isn't what you came here for. He looked up, confused. You came here to be seen, she continued. The way I wanted to be seen. The room grew still again. Outside, the light faded as evening crept in through the window. Daniel reached into his jacket slowly. Not to interrupt her, but because the silence had brought him to the moment he could no longer avoid. Emily noticed the movement and stiffened. What is that? She asked. Daniel hesitated. Something that belongs to you, he said. And for the first time since he arrived, her silence cracked, just slightly, making space for what came next. Daniel's hand remained inside his jacket, unmoving, as if the weight of what he carried had suddenly doubled. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Emily's eyes followed every breath he took. Slowly, carefully, he pulled out a small notebook and placed it on the table between them. It landed without a sound, but the impact was deafening. Emily froze. Her fingers hovered above the worn leather cover, afraid to touch it, afraid to confirm what she already knew. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "I found it the night you left," Daniel said. His voice was unsteady now. "It was hidden behind the books on the shelf. I didn't know what it was at first." She closed her eyes. The memories rushed back. Late nights, dim lamps, words written through tears she never allowed him to see. "I shouldn't have read it," he continued. "But I did. Every page." He swallowed hard. "You wrote about waiting, about eating dinner alone, about practicing conversations you hoped we'd have someday." Emily's composure cracked. Her hand dropped to the table as if her strength had suddenly left her. "There was one line," Daniel said quietly, "that I can't forget. I don't need him to be rich. I just need him to come home." A sob escaped her before she could stop it. Years of restraint collapsed in that single sound. Tears blurred her vision, spilling freely now. "I tried," she said through trembling breaths. "I tried to be patient. I tried to be proud of you." Her voice broke. "But I felt like a ghost in my own marriage." Daniel stood and knelt beside her chair, his expensive suit wrinkling against the floor. "None of it mattered. I thought providing was loving," he said. "I didn't realize loving meant being there." Emily clutched the notebook to her chest, as if protecting the last pieces of her former self. The silence returned, but this time it was alive, filled with truth instead of avoidance. After a long moment, she looked at him. Her eyes were red, but clear. "Money didn't make you late," she said softly. "Fear did." Daniel bowed his head. For the first time in his life, success felt small. The gesture had done what words never could, it had given her voice back. And once spoken, it could never be taken away. The house grew quiet again, but it was no longer the heavy silence of unfinished words. It was softer now, like the calm after a storm that had finally passed. Emily sat back in her chair, the notebook resting on her lap, her fingers tracing the worn edges as if saying goodbye to a former version of herself. Daniel remained on his knees for a moment longer, unsure whether standing would feel like leaving all over again. When he finally rose, the distance between them felt clearer, defined, honest. "I didn't come to ask you back," he said quietly. "I came because I needed you to know that I finally understand." Emily looked up at him. For the first time since he arrived, there was no anger in her eyes. Only truth. "Understanding doesn't always arrive on time," she replied. "But it still matters." She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one. "I rebuilt my life here," she continued, slowly, carefully. "I learned how to stop waiting." Daniel nodded. He could see it now. The strength in the way she carried herself, the peace in the space she had created alone. He realized then that loving her meant not disturbing that peace. Emily turned and held out the notebook. "Take it," she said. Daniel hesitated. "It's yours." "It was," she answered gently. "Now it's a reminder, for you." He accepted it with both hands, as if receiving something sacred. They walked together to the door. No rush, no regret-filled speeches, just two people honoring what had been and what could never be again. At the threshold, Daniel paused. "I'm sorry," he said. Not the careless apology of the past, but a quiet truth, stripped of hope. Emily nodded. "I know." She opened the door, letting the cool evening air in. As he stepped outside, she spoke once more. "Some love stories don't end in reunion," she said. "They end in clarity." Daniel turned back, wanting to say something, anything, but there was nothing left to add. He walked away down the path, the notebook pressed against his chest, carrying lessons no fortune could buy. Emily closed the door behind him and leaned against it, not in sorrow, but in relief. For the first time in years, both of them were finally free.